Hello, this is Captain Aquarius coming to you doing business again on May the 4th, 2017 from Hamburg, Germany, with some information about the two videos that I am going to release within the next few days. The next one after this is going to be about the full moon that is coming on May the 10th or 11th, depending on your location. This one is a video specifically devoted to the topic of the astrocartography of health. And we are concentrating on this now because the last of the three webinars in the series that I've done about astrocartography in the early months of this year is coming up soon on May the 26th from Hamburg, Germany at 7 p.m. so that naturally it will be available to you at other times of the day depending on your time zone. For example, 1 p.m. in the afternoon in New York, 12 noon at U.S. Central Time, and so on and so on. The webinar is open to anyone really who is interested in this subject and would like to join us. You can enroll just by following the link that you see here in this piece of the flyer about mapsofpowerbook.com. If you follow this link, this will tell you how you can join us if you would like to. So please come on along. This is the subject that I specialize in, not only astrocartography, but very often astrocartography as it relates specifically to issues of holistic health. And we will talk a little bit more about what this means in reference really to the planet Chiron, the wounded healer, and the whole subject of health as it is better understood now in our time. The way that the view of astrology in relation to health evolved is easy enough to see in this colorized version of a 16th century woodcut that you see right here. This shows the familiar alignment of the animals representing the zodiac signs aligned on a human body, with the first sign of Aries perched right on top of the head, and the last sign of Pisces at the feet, and the other zodiac signs placed at different parts of the body to which in this imaginary system they may correspond. But it's not entirely imaginary. You can see here, for example, that the sign of Taurus is tucked just under the chin of this figure. Taurus, in fact, does rule the face because this sign is ruled by Venus, the sensuous goddess of love and beauty. So it is natural then that the senses of sight and taste and smell, and to some extent the sense of hearing as well, would all be located in this zone of the body. Some of this makes a great deal of sense. Some of it is rather fanciful. We can see a better image of this coming next to what we notice here. This is from roughly the same period of time in a much more elegant French image that you notice here. And we see, for example, here that the sign of Gemini, the twins, are placed at the shoulders of this figure, which does not really make a great deal of sense because Gemini is the ruler of communications, of speech. So naturally, he should be located right at the throat chakra, you see. So, however, other things in this image really are strikingly relevant. You notice that the sign of Cancer is placed right above the breasts of this figure, and this is appropriate to the fact that Cancer is indeed the mother sign, the ruler of the female reproductive organs, the lymph system, and in that sense of this primary system of liquids within the body. The other one that is very appropriate here, as you notice, is that the sign of Leo is placed right at the heart, which seems logically, traditionally, to be associated with the heart and the circulatory system. So this is the way it was for quite a long period of time until the newest planets in the system, or at least the ones that are newest to our consciousness, began to be discovered in the late 18th century. And the understanding that we have now has unfolded in two stages, really, over the last century, thanks in large part to the work of two German astrologers, mother and son, who were active in Germany at the end of the 19th century and through most of the 20th century. One of the great pioneer hero astrologers of the time was Elsbeth Eberton, shown here, who had the interesting life scenario and sacred contract of being an astrologer in the Germany of Kaiser Wilhelm, followed by the Germany of Adolf Hitler, and was in continuous trouble, especially during the First World War, when there was a law on the books banning any kind of fortune telling. For the obvious reason that governments practice all the time, they want to suppress the truth of the situation, especially when very skilled German astrologers can easily see that Germany is going to lose the war. She was the one, along with her son Reinhold, who is shown here. Reinhold lived from 1901 to 1988 and is the one who developed the system of alignment between zodiac signs and planets and organ systems within the body. A lot of this is presented in his landmark book, The Combination of Stellar Influences, which is shown here. If you are interested in learning astrology, this is not really the book that you're going to start with, but this is the book that you are going to meet sooner or later, and most likely sooner. It is an absolutely invaluable reference book for astrologers. The breakthrough that these two brilliant astrologers came up with was to see that the zodiac signs and planets do not correspond to particular areas of the body, but rather to body systems. For example, the planet Mars, associated always with the crown of the head in these traditional body diagrams, in the Eberton system rules naturally the muscular system, because this involves the physicality of Mars the warrior. For example, also, if we wanted to guess which one of the planets rules the skeletal system, that is, the bones and the teeth, the hardest and most solid components of the body, which one would it be? Obviously, Saturn, conveying his heaviness, his weight, his solidity, in terms of his position as the principle of solidity and limitation in the world. And there are other correspondences of this kind too. The planet Uranus, interestingly enough, rules the nervous system. And so he is one whom we naturally want to track when we are looking at the health or the disorder of the nervous system, especially when nervous afflictions and disorders may manifest as nervous overload, nervous exhaustion of the kind that may be experienced by people who can be said to be from the Chiron versus Saturn generation in our lives. People who are now in their 50s will often be in this position because they were born at a time when Saturn was opposite to the position of Chiron the healer. Or when, I'm sorry, that Chiron the healer was opposite to the position of Uranus. This means then that these people will have a sense of needing to be high achievers, will drive themselves very hard to the point that they may face nervous overload and exhaustion. So this particular pattern of opposition between Uranus, the revolutionary, the bringer of change, the trickster, the magician, the producer of magical effects on one side, versus Chiron, the wounded healer, on the other, leads us to the most modern current component of the system here, and that is the planet Chiron, who was discovered in 1977, right at the time when the holistic health movement began. And so the association of this small planetoid, who is located in the asteroid belt between Saturn and Uranus and has an orbit of 50 years, is naturally associated then with not the traditional physical, purely materialistic view of medicine as a kind of mechanical science, but rather the holistic view of medicine, which sees disorder and illness manifesting in the physical body only after it has manifested and has gone unaddressed in the emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies. And so this is a very different understanding connected here with the figure that you see in this famous mosaic diagram from ancient Greece. There is going to be more about Chiron in the next video after this one. We will explore more the mythology of this figure, why he is not a centaur, even though he actually looks like one. Here he is shown with one of his students. The kings of Greece admired his wisdom so greatly that they sent them to Chiron to study, in addition to the arts of war that they already knew from their teachers at home, the arts of peace, music, medicine, other things of this kind that would complete their education and, we hope, turn them into something more than just murderers and plunderers. So the one who is shown with Chiron here is the boy who will grow up to be the famous warrior hero Achilles. He is shown with Chiron, who is teaching him the lyre, as you can see here, and the boy is not very happy about this. He is wondering, frankly, all right, when are we going to get through with this twinkle, twinkle, little star practice and get to the sword? But Chiron did indeed have a wonderful effect in his teaching here, in the sense that Achilles was famous for being the most skilled of the wound dressers in the Greek army at Troy. If the wound was severe, the warrior was taken to Achilles, who might be able to help him with the skills that he learned from Chiron. So we're going to look at the position of Chiron the wounded healer soon in an actual astrocartography map. It can be said that his energy works in two directions, moving outward in the healing or wounding effect that we may have on the lives of other people through what we do as health practitioners, or what we do simply as people who are affecting others with what we do and say. And the other, far more universal and really more relevant and significant, is the internal dimension of recognizing and working out our wounds, whatever they are. So that this is a process in which this planet is greatly involved, and his combinations with other planets in the chart may indeed show us the areas in which our wounds are most likely to be located. Obviously, a Chiron-Venus combination may involve the love wound. The Chiron-Jupiter combination may involve the money wound, and so on and so on and so on. What we're going to do here is look at a map, interestingly enough, for a person who at the age of 50 is contemplating the journey to the great shrine of Santiago de Compostela in Spain. The age of 50 is significant because this is the year of the Chiron return. That is the year in which Chiron has gone all the way around the wheel in his 50-year orbit, returns to his original position, so that this is a time when we have the opportunity to work on our wound and resolve it. So that this is a moment of crucial importance in the lives of all people. And we're going to see how it works in this particular astrocartography map. To give you a little bit of introduction to the basic rules as they apply here, every line in the map is relevant for a range of about 300 miles or 500 kilometers to either side. And every line, as you see, has a directional arrow on it that is pointing to the top, the bottom, the east, or the west within the map itself. So in this one, of course, we see that there is a Saturn line, a yellow one, touching the bottom of the map, the practical material dimension of life on the Earth plane. There are two lines pointing east, a sun line off the west coast, the closest one to Santiago de Compostela, there in the northwestern area of Spain. And there is a purple Uranus line, as you see, going close to Valencia and Zaragoza in the eastern part of Spain. So a person who makes the pilgrimage from the eastern area of Spain, from Barcelona or a little bit west of there, and is coming all the way across the country to the west, is going to arrive eventually at the Field of Stars, which is what Compostela means, because this is supposed to be an area in which the night sky is so magnificently clear that when one arrives there, the stars seem to dance. And so no wonder people have always wanted to make this pilgrimage for this and a number of other reasons. A person who is engaged in this pilgrimage then is going to be starting in the east, passing under the purple line of Uranus, the bringer of change, the revolutionary, the innovator, with his arrow pointed west, which is the direction of relationship. So it is most predictable here that at the early stage of the journey, when we are traveling with a group of other pilgrims, we are getting to know everyone else. There's a lot of social communication. The focus of our interest and effort is primarily going outward. As we get, however, into the middle of the journey, going toward the center of the country and a little to the west, now we are passing under the green Chiron line with the arrow pointing to the east, which involves a wound in our self-identity, the way in which we project our intentions and our creativity into the world, and the crossing of this line with the planet Saturn, as you see there. So this is very likely going to involve a way in which this person's relationship with the world, his self-esteem, is going to be grounded largely in difficulties of operating with money on the earth plane, because that is the practical effect of that Saturn line pointing downward to the bottom of the map. We are engaged in the business of making a living on the practical plane here, devoting all of this tremendous Saturnian effort to it, so that this becomes very often a workaholic line. And so this is very likely the personal issue that this person is going to have to address, and he is going to go inward, because the effect of this kind of Saturn line is that we become more contemplative, more meditative, more reflective, less social than we were at the beginning of the journey. But the good news here is that eventually, when we wind up in the west at Santiago de Compostela, we are within range of this magnificent yellow sun line with the arrow pointing to the east. This is our life force, vitality, creativity, our capacity for leadership, literally the way we shine in the world. And so the journey then can have a very optimistic and positive and empowering conclusion here. So that if you wanted to design, you see, an astrocartography map for the Camino to Santiago de Compostela, it is likely to look something like this one, going outward socially, going inward, and then coming back out in a brighter and more empowered and excited manner into the world. So this gives you a little bit of understanding of the astrocartography of health as it applies to the planet Chiron. See you at the webinar, I hope, on the 26th.